All right, so today we're starting rounding. You guys probably had rounding in the past. I'm hoping that you guys got to it in 4th grade, but if you didn't, that's okay. We will catch you up. So on the top of your page, turn to a clean page, write the title rounding and today's date, which is the 21st. You guys just got done watching a video called for Number Rock. It was a review. You don't need to write that part. I just wrote that in there in my notes. I knew that you guys watched that. Now, you guys got this paper. It was two-sided. You had this part that looks like this, and then you had a part that had the definitions on it that needed to be glued first. So glue this part here with the definitions. You don't have this part yet. And then glue down the flaps, just like what we've done before, and your standard that we're doing. So your standard is using place value to understand rounding decimals to any place. So even if you don't remember rounding whole numbers, that's okay. We're going to practice with decimals, and it really doesn't change much at all. All right, so decimal, the definition of a decimal, a part of a whole written with a decimal point. So I'm going to use my highlighter because I want to highlight some things in there that are really important. A decimal is a part of a whole. Have you ever heard part of a whole before? Yeah, you would have heard it with fractions, right? So basically a decimal is another way to write a fraction. So if I was thinking of 5/10, I wrote it out in word form here. It's the same thing as if I took one whole and cut it into 10 pieces and then shaded in 5 of them. So if I wrote it as a fraction, it would look like this. So it's written both ways, and we're learning about the decimal part right now. We will get to fractions later on this year, but we start with decimals. All right, remember at any time you guys can pause this video to get caught up. Your next word is rounding. Estimating to a certain place value. Estimating. When you're rounding, you're estimating. So if I had 27 hundredths and I was rounding to the nearest tenth, I would look at the one next to it and it would tell me to round up or down, which we're going to go over those rules too. But you heard a little bit of it in the video. So the 7 is greater than 5. So it's going to tell me to round the underlined number up. So it would round to 3/10. And the reason why is that this is my number line. Here's my 2/10, my 25 hundredths, and here's where 27 hundredths would fall. So it would fall in between, I guess if I wrote it like this, you guys might see it a little bit better. You can put zeros on this side of a decimal and it doesn't change the value of it. So if I have 20 hundredths, 25 hundredths, 30 hundredths, 27 hundredths goes in between 25 and 30. So it's bigger, it's closer to 30 hundredths than it is to 20 hundredths. So 27 hundredths rounded to the nearest 10 is, I'm going to write 30 hundredths on there. I think that makes a little bit more sense. Okay, place is the next one. A digit's position within a number. And you guys have seen me draw this place value chart before. So if I have 46 and 321 thousandths, each digit has its own place. So the 4 is in the tens, the 6 is in the ones, the 3 is in the tenths, the 2 is in the hundredths, the 1 is in the thousandths. So that's the digit's position. I guess we could highlight that, where it's located. Okay, so go ahead and get that written in your notebook. If for some reason you don't have this paper from getting a packet or you didn't print it out, you can always just write them like regular definitions, like write rounding, put a dash, write the definition, and you can do this right underneath it and then go to the next one. So you have 3 vocabulary words. All right, another thing that I gave you to print out, I forgot to put it in some of the packets. So If you don't have this, you can just write it down. It's okay. Normally I've always written it down, but I happen to find this organizer. Okay, so the rounding rules. You have to follow, excuse me. You have to follow the rules. All through math this year, you guys are gonna have rules and steps to do. And you really have to just keep referring back to your notes and following the steps or the rules. So this is just another way of saying steps. Okay, so rounding rules or steps. You guys know me so far enough that you know I like color. I like color on my page. All right, so we have step number 1. Find the rounding place, so a place, and circle it. Oh, the other one, I underlined it. It doesn't matter if you circle or underline it, as long as you mark it some way. And circle it. A lot of people underline it and then circle the one next to it. It doesn't matter. Just choose underlining or circling, whichever way you like to do it. So I'm going to write that. And then step 2. You're going to go next door, underline the digit. So this first digit is where you're rounding it. You go next door, and that is going to be the boss. Okay. So then step 3, ask, is this one that's next door 4 or less or 5 or more? It's a 5. So would that be 4 or less or 5 or more? It is 5 or more. So is it 4 or less, 5 or more? So if it's 5 or more, you're going to raise the score. If it's 4 or less, you're going to let it rest. All right, then step 4. So there's 4 steps. You're going to change all the numbers to the right of the circle to 0. So everything to the right turns to 0. Okay, so you can go ahead and write those down. Okay, now you guys have an assignment to practice those rules. Man, I should have changed these rules. Maybe that wasn't a good idea, having that print out, but that's okay. So here, they didn't underline it, they circled it. I mean, they didn't circle it, they underlined it. That's what you're gonna see most, is the underlining of where you're going to round it. So you guys have this paper right here. And if you don't, you can just copy them down. It's not a big deal. I'm gonna do the first 4 with you, and then you're going to do the last 4. So these are the ones that you're going to do on your own. And I'm going to use these rules right here. All right. So you're going to cut it out and glue it in. You don't need to have the directions because I'm telling you the directions right now. You're going to look at the underlined digits. So you're rounding to the nearest 10th right here. You're going to look next door and you're going to circle it, because they have this one underlined. So you can tell the difference between the 2 numbers. So the 6 is going to tell you what to do. So you're going to go over here. Step 3 is the most important step. Underlining and circling, as long as you know which is which, this one is the most important step. So 6, is it 4 or less or 5 or more? It's 5 or more. So it says to raise the score. So you're going to add 1 to this side. So 0 plus 1 is what? 1. All the digits to the right or to the left, you're going to just bring down. All the digits to the right, you're going to turn to zeros. Okay. Now, with decimals, zeros on this side, you do not need to write them. Like, I could continue writing zeros for the rest of my life, and it's never going to change the value of that number. So you could either write it like this, or you could just write it like this. There's two different ways to write it. So whichever way makes you more comfortable. Neither one of them's wrong. Okay, so we're going to go to this one. This one wants you to round it to the nearest whole number. So you're going to look at the digit to the right. What is the digit to the right telling you to do? Look at step 3. Is it 4 or less or 5 or more? It's 5 or more. So it's going to tell you to raise the score of the 9. So 9 plus 1 is what? 10. Then everything to the right turns to a 0. Do I have to write those zeros though? No, I could just write 10. These two numbers are the same exact number. Okay, the next one. They want you to round to the nearest hundredth. So the 3 is going to tell you what to do. So look over here at step 3. Is it 4 or less or 5 or more? It's 4 or less because 3 is less than 4. So you're going to let it rest. So that means this number to the left here, you're just going to keep it the same. Every digit to the left needs to be brought down. And that 3, every digit to the right can turn to zeros. Or you could write it like this. You don't need this 0 at the end because it's on the right side of the decimal. Okay, the next one. The 8, they're wanting you to round to the nearest hundredth. So the 6 is going to tell you what to do. It's the boss. It's very bossy. So the 6, is it 4 or less or 5 or more? It's 5 or more. So it's going to tell you to raise the score. So 8 plus 1 is 9. Everything to the left you bring down. Everything to the right you turn to a 0. But because it's a decimal, do I have to have that 0 there? No. These two numbers are the same exact value. Okay, so on your own, you're going to finish these 4. And I want you to add something to your notes over here. So it says change all the numbers to the right of the circle to 0. Well, all the numbers actually all the digits. You don't want to say numbers because that's all the digits. So I don't like that either. Digits, not numbers. All the digits to the left of the rounded digit stays the same. Okay. So all the digits to the left. It's that way. All right, so go ahead and try those 4 on your own. Make sure you guys have written some stuff on your notes here. And complete these 4.